The roar of engines rolled through the small roadside town like distant thunder, rattling windows and turning a few curious heads. It was late afternoon, the sun hanging low and golden, when a line of bikers pulled into the parking lot of a worn-down diner just off the highway. Leather jackets, patched vests, heavy boots, and chrome bikes gleaming with dust from miles of road, people watched from inside with the usual mix of curiosity and quiet judgment. To most they looked intimidating. To most they looked like trouble. None of them noticed the little girl at first. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, barefoot, her dress torn at the hem, hair tangled and sticking to her tear-streaked cheeks. She stood frozen at the edge of the parking lot, eyes wide with terror, chest heaving as if she'd been running for her life. When she finally found her voice, it broke through the rumble of engines like a scream ripping through silence. "They're beating my mama!" The words cracked something open in the air. Conversation stopped. One biker mid-laugh went silent. Another slowly turned his head. The little girl ran forward then, straight toward the biggest group of bikes, sobbing so hard she nearly tripped. She grabbed onto the leg of a tall biker with a gray-streaked beard and clenched fists, pressing her face into his worn leather pants, as if he were the only solid thing left in the world. "Please," she cried, her voice hoarse and desperate. "Please help her." For a split second, the parking lot seemed to hold its breath. The man she clung to, everyone called him Hawk, looked down at her, confusion flickering across his weathered face. Hawk had seen a lot in his 60 years: war, loss, broken roads, broken people. But nothing prepared him for the raw fear in that child's eyes. He crouched down slowly, careful not to startle her, and placed a gentle hand on her shaking shoulder. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly, his voice unexpectedly calm. "What's your name?" "Lily," she sniffed. "They're hurting my mama. Please, they won't stop." Behind Hawk, the other bikers exchanged looks. These were men and women from different states, different pasts, bound by miles of road and a code few outsiders understood. They weren't saints. They weren't criminals either. They were people, some broken, some healing, all fiercely loyal when it mattered. Hawk stood up, his expression hardening, not with anger but with resolve. "Where is she?" Lily pointed down a cracked side street, toward a cluster of rundown apartment buildings half hidden behind overgrown trees. "There," she whispered, "in the blue one." Hawk didn't hesitate. He turned to his crew, his eyes meeting theirs. No dramatic speeches, no shouting, just a nod. And that was enough. Engines roared back to life. The bikers moved as one, a rolling wave of steel and leather, following the tiny girl who ran ahead as fast as her legs could carry her. People stared as they passed, some confused, some afraid, some silently praying. Lily led them to the building, a chipped blue structure with boarded windows and peeling paint. From inside, raised voices echoed, harsh, cruel, unmistakable. A woman's cry cut through the air. Lily stopped at the entrance, trembling. Hawk knelt again, looking her straight in the eyes. "Stay here," he said gently. "We've got you." The hallway smelled of damp concrete and neglect. At the end of it, a door stood half open. Inside, chaos. A woman lay curled on the floor, shielding her head with her arms while two men towered over her, shouting, kicking, drunk on rage and power. Blood streaked her lip. Bruises bloomed across her arms. The door slammed open. Silence fell like a hammer. The two men turned, faces draining of color as they took in the sight. A line of bikers filling the doorway, massive, unmoving, eyes cold and steady. Hawk stepped forward slowly, his boots echoing with each step. His voice was low, controlled, deadly calm. "That's enough," one of the men scoffed, trying to laugh it off. "This ain't your business, old man." Hawk looked past him, down at the woman on the floor. She lifted her head slightly, eyes wide with disbelief and fear. Then he looked back at the men. "It became our business the moment a little girl had to beg strangers to save her mother. What happened next wasn't violence, not the kind people expected. It was something far more powerful. The bikers didn't throw punches. They didn't raise weapons. They simply closed in, surrounding the two men, cutting off every exit, their presence alone an unspoken promise. This ends now. Phones came out. One biker quietly called the police. Another knelt beside the woman, offering his jacket, his voice soft and reassuring. The men began to panic, their bravado crumbling under the weight of accountability. When the police arrived, they found two shaken abusers sitting on the floor, hands trembling, and a room full of witnesses who refused to look away. Outside, Lily clung to her mother as paramedics wrapped her in blankets. The woman, her name was Maria, couldn't stop crying, whispering thank yous over and over, her arms wrapped tightly around her daughter as if afraid she might disappear. "I didn't know what to do," Maria sobbed. "I thought no one would help us." Hawk stood a few steps away watching. He felt something heavy settle in his chest, a mix of sorrow and fierce protectiveness. Lily walked over to him, still holding her mother's hand. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You're not scary." Hawk smiled then, a real smile, the kind that reaches the eyes. "Neither are you," he said. "You're brave." The story didn't end that day. In the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. The bikers didn't just ride away and forget. They checked in. They made calls. They connected Maria with local shelters, legal aid, counseling. One of the women riders helped Lily get new shoes. Another brought groceries. Hawk showed up with a backpack filled with school supplies, awkwardly handing it to Lily like it was the most precious thing he'd ever carried. The town noticed. Whispers turned into conversations. Conversations turned into gratitude. People who once crossed the street to avoid the bikers now waved. The diner owner put up a sign that read, "Bikers welcome. Heroes eat here." Maria found the strength to start over. It wasn't easy, healing never is, but she wasn't alone anymore. Lily started smiling again, her laughter slowly replacing the echoes of fear. And every time she heard a motorcycle in the distance, she didn't flinch. She felt safe. Months later, on a bright spring afternoon, the bikers gathered again in that same parking lot. This time, Lily ran toward them, not in fear, but with joy. She held up a drawing, crayon figures of bikes, a little girl, and a group of people standing together under a bright yellow sun. "This is us," she said proudly. "You saved my mama." Hawk knelt, his eyes misting as he took the picture. "No," he said softly. "You did. You had the courage to ask for help." The engine started once more, but this time the sound felt different, lighter, hopeful. As they rode off, Hawk glanced in his mirror, seeing Lily waving, Maria standing tall beside her. And he knew something had changed, not just for them, but for everyone who witnessed that day. Because sometimes, heroes don't wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear leather and ride loud bikes. Sometimes they're little girls with trembling voices and unbreakable love. And sometimes, all it takes to change a life is the courage to stop, listen, and choose compassion over fear. That day, a little girl ran to the bikers crying for help. What they did didn't just save a mother. It reminded an entire town and everyone who heard the story that humanity still rides strong, and kindness, when it shows up, can change everything.